Hi friends. Better. Not perfect, but better. Thanks for asking. I thought our relationship is effectively neutral, but thanks for asking. Chaliye, please close your eyes for a moment. Online students, please confirm that you can hear me and see me by typing yes. Thank you guys. My health is slightly better than earlier. Thanks for asking. So, in the last lecture, we had discussed a detailed critique of Karl Marx. Please make note that we had not discussed Marx's criticism topic-wise, right? For dialectical materialism and mode of production, etc. We had discussed a detailed criticism overall of Karl Marx. Many of those now you will have to pick and choose when you get a topic-wise this thing. Why we have understood them in totality? Because first we were trying to grasp the whole of Marx's theory. And Marx's theory is like an integrated whole, And after that we have critiqued it. Many of those criticisms will be applicable to almost all the topics. For example, when we say that Marx's theory is accused of, or Marx is accused of economic determinism, that will hold equally good whether you're writing on historical materialism ka criticism ya mode of production ka criticism, etc. Right? But you'll have to apply your mind slightly where we'll fit what. One is that. Secondly, there are certain assorted topics from Karl Marx which have not yet been covered, and I want to cover them now before we start discussing the next figure. Theek? Did I tell you what kind of a person Karl Marx was? No, like personally, he was not a very likable person. Okay? As an aside, Marx was not a very likable person in the sense of all the people in the world. He had a fallout with his mother. Okay? His mother famously had once commented that it would have been preferable had he made capital rather than write about it. कि उन्होंने कुछ पैसा नहीं कमाया. And Marx, he had such a thing against his mother. He once wrote a letter, I think, to Engels, wishing his mother was dead. While she was alive, he had wished she was dead. Okay? And the reason for their tiff, माँ का प्यार उनको नहीं समझ आया. The reason for their tiff was money. Because his mother was controlling his father's estate. His father had died young, when Marx was young, and his mother was preventing the devolution of whatever rightfully belonged to Marx. So that is why he grudged her very presence. ठीक है, इस टाइप के व्यक्ति थे वो. सगी मदर, not foster mother. The birthing biological and his social mother, एक ही mother थी वो. And he apparently had an extramarital affair and a child, illegitimate child born out of that affair, whom he never publicly acknowledged to, and he kind of put the fathership of that child onto Engels to protect his own reputation, apparently. Okay? And now Marx was such a legendary, impactful philosopher. Imagine how many people would have attended his funeral. In India, when a politician or somebody of repute dies, how many people you find at the funeral? Lakhs and lakhs, literally. Imagine how many would have. Marx, who was this most towering figure of the communist movement worldwide. Fewer than 12 persons, fewer than a dozen persons attended Marx's funeral. He was so not liked at a personal level. And those 12 included Karl Marx himself and the dead Karl Marx. He dabbled in shares, right, which is like considered a form of gambling. Gambling in the shares market or the stocks market. To make what? That dirty word, the dirty M word, money. Something he so chastised and considered, a source of all the societal ills. ठीक है, तो बड़े बड़े लोगों की भी कई बार बड़ी छोटी छोटी शख्सियत होती है ना. चलिए, coming to some assorted topics left out from Karl Marx. The first such. While writing his criticisms, don't write all these. These are just masala, not meant for using in answers. You don't say he fathered an illegitimate child and he was a bad son. That's not a legitimate criticism. You have to criticize his writings, not the person. Chaliye. So, where are we? Short topics. Pehla, Asiatic mode of production. Now, friends, in the Marxist schema, he developed this universal schema: primitive communism, ancient slave, feudal, capitalist, and communist societies. Where would you place pre-colonial Indian society? Which type is it? It is not feudal economy. According to Marx, it is not a feudal economy. एक सेकंड भैया, थैंक यू. It is not a feudal economy. Indian economy or society belonged to a distinct type, a unique type, not fitting into any of those categories. Pre-colonial Indian economy, it was the Asiatic mode of production. So Marx developed this concept of Asiatic mode of production to specifically refer to the nature of the economy in pre-colonial India and China. Two major, these were what he termed as the Asiatic mode of production. Now, what was the nature of the economy and the society in pre-colonial India? According to Marx, or what is this Asiatic mode of production? Let us try to appreciate. Firstly, there was no private ownership of land. There was no private ownership of land. So land was owned by who? अरे भाई लैंडलॉर्ड्स होते तो वो प्राइवेट ओनरशिप ऑफ लैंड ही हो जाती ना, वही तो नहीं थी. बाय द विलेज कम्युनिटी, द लैंड वॉज ओन्ड कम्युनली. कम्युनली मतलब जॉइंटली, रफली, बाय द विलेज कम्युनिटी. Secondly, what was the nature of the economy? क्या काम होता था? So, it was primarily an agrarian economy combined with light manufacturing. Agrarian economy and light manufacturing. Light manufacturing in the sense, for example, cloth would be manufactured using the hand spun cloth. The spinning wheel, right? So some basic manufacturing and agriculture and allied activities. Now villages, okay, or Indian society was organized in terms of, लिख लो, Indian society was organized in terms of self-sufficient village communities. Self-sufficient village communities. What do you mean self-sufficient village communities? That all the needs of the villagers were satisfied from where? From within the village. हमारी जो भी जरूरतें हैं सारी गांव में ही पूरी हो जाती थी, बाहर जाने की आवश्यकता नहीं पड़ती थी. All the needs of the villagers were met or satisfied from within the village. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मुझे क्या चाहिए? मुझे बाल कटवाने, तो कौन है? नहीं. मुझे लोहे के उपकरण चाहिए. आई नीड टूल्स मेड ऑफ आयरन. सो whom do we have? लोहार्स और आयरन स्मिथ्स. Are you with me? And so on and so forth. So all the needs of the village were met from within. Thirdly, there used to be a centralized authority, or a king, or a monarch. A central authority in the form of a king or monarch extracted tribute from the village communities. Extracted tribute, या lagan, from the village community. So the surplus was collected by the monarchy. Okay, on what basis? On what basis did the monarchy develop this right to collect or extract a tribute from the village communities? Two bases were there. There were two bases upon which the monarchy, the central authority, extracted a tribute from the self-sufficient village communities. First was brute military power. Brute military power. Simply, जिसकी लाठी उसकी भैंस. Meaning, if I have a standing army, I will extract compliance. नहीं मानोगे तो 4 गुना लगान, or whatever. ठीक है? So based simply on brute military power. And the second basis, very importantly, was the control of the central authority. The control of the central authority over क्या? Sorry? over, very importantly, irrigation systems. Over the irrigation systems. So it was typically the kings who developed these, long drawn irrigation systems spanning across villages or providing waters to lands in far off villages. And that became a source of revenue or tribute for the central authority. In fact, that is why these Asiatic societies are also referred to as hydraulic civilizations. Because of the importance of water resources and irrigation systems, these Asiatic societies, कौन सी? हम, India, China, are also referred to as hydraulic civilizations. So what was the nature of ownership? Land was not owned by individuals. There was no private ownership. Land was owned by the village community. But ultimate ownership of land vested in who? The monarch. The ultimate ownership of all land vested in the monarch. ठीक. Now these Asiatic societies exhibited remarkable continuity. Asiatic societies, and whatever I am discussing are the views of Marx, none of my own. These Asiatic societies exhibited remarkable continuity. What do we mean by that? See, Indian society at a macro level, it has seen over a period of, period spanning several centuries, even millennia, it has witnessed a lot of political turmoil. Yes or no? So you have had one dynasty after another, one set of invaders after another. Yes or no? One ruler after another, replacing in quick succession. Yes? Despite these tumultuous changes in the polity at the central level, the village communities remained almost untouched. They remained almost the same for very, very long periods of time. So, imagine if there is some nondescript village in the interiors of Haryana, a village named Rampura. It was the same kind of a village society and economy in the Mauryan period as it was in the Mughal period several centuries later. Rampura ही रहा. डिनेस्टीज आई और गई. कभी तुर्क रूल कर रहे थे, कभी ईरानियन रूल कर रहे थे, कभी मुगल रूल कर रहे थे, कभी पठान रूल कर रहे थे, कभी स्काइथियंस रूल कर रहे थे, कभी साकाज रूल कर रहे थे, कभी मौर्यन, कभी गुप्ता, कभी कोई. बट रामपुरा क्या रहा? रामपुरा. Why didn't these massive changes and turmoils at the central level not impact the village communities? Because they were mostly self-sufficient. So all their needs were met within. So changes were taking place at the central level but not affecting the village community as such. So that is why Marx suggests that the village communities exhibited a remarkable continuity. The village economy and the village society remained unchanged for very long periods of time. spanning several centuries, even millennia. ठीक, such was the nature of Indian society and economy in pre-colonial India. What was the impact of colonial rule on Indian society and economy? बताओ क्या हुआ? Self-sufficiency was broken. और बताओ? Yes. Commercialization of agriculture. Yes. New education. All of these changes that we've read about at length in our history books, बढ़िया थे या घटिया थे? बहुत बढ़िया. These were, according to Marx, progressive changes. Why? Because the Asiatic economies and societies were stagnant. Colonial rule broke their stagnancy, ended their stagnation, and unleashed new productive forces. हजारों सालों से ये इकोनॉमीज ऐसी ही चली जा रही थी, लो प्रोडक्टिविटी लेवल्स वगैरह पे. तो colonial rule was progressive in that sense. It broke the stagnation. It ended the stagnation of the Asiatic mode. ठीक है? ये है इसका concept of Asiatic mode of production. A couple of quick criticisms. Firstly, one criticism is, many critics suggest that pre-colonial Indian economy was not very vastly different from feudal Europe. Pre-colonial Indian economy was not very different from medieval Europe. In other words, हम भी क्या थे? किस टाइप की इकोनॉमी इन दी मार्क्सिस्ट स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स अकॉर्डिंग टू दीज क्रिटिक्स? फ्यूडल. So there was no necessity of devising a new category or a new mode of production to explain the material conditions in Asia. कोई एशियाटिक मोड अलग नहीं था यहां पे. We simply were quite similar to the feudal mode of production. Pre-colonial India was also feudal in character, according to the critics. ठीक? Secondly, in Soviet Russia, Stalin banned the use of the concept of Asiatic mode. Stalin was an important figure in Soviet history. He banned officially the use of the concept of Asiatic mode. So this concept was also not liked by Stalinist Russia. The reasons were basically, there was this another Marxist scholar and politician by the name of Trotsky. Okay? Trotsky had endorsed this concept of Asiatic mode of production, particularly to explain China. Chinese society. India was not a major thing in the scheme of things. But to explain Chinese economy, Trotsky employed the use of the concept of Asiatic mode. Stalin and Trotsky did not see eye to eye in terms of their interpretation of Marxism, or there were also competing politics there. So simply, out of such political and ideological reasons, Soviet Russia under Stalin banned the use of the concept of Asiatic mode. ठीक? या हाँ, so Soviet Russia, communism is viewed in Marxism as a global movement, as an international movement to unite the workers across national boundaries. For that, some Marxists suggest you have to go stage by stage, or first national level and then international. So you need to have an understanding of, and that is why, and in the Cold War context, Soviet Russia encouraged and financed communist movements in different parts of the world, including India. So so Stalinist Russia banned the use of the concept of Asiatic mode of production. Thirdly, in their later writings, Marx and Engels, they themselves abandoned this idea of an Asiatic mode of production. I repeat, in their later writings, Marx and Engels also abandoned the concept of Asiatic mode of production. ठीक? Next concept. We'll be doing it like very briefly, such concepts. Next concept. Asiatic mode possibly has been asked in the exam. I don't remember the year, vagera, but quite likely it has been asked. The next concept, not been asked, but is like an important aspect of Marxist writings. Praxis. What does the word praxis mean? It literally means, क्या हो गया ये? कोई मक्खी बैठ गई होगी ना, उससे हो जाता है ऐसा. It literally means to practice, to do, to act. I'll dictate also, if that brings any relief. Hear me out. So basically it means to do or to take action. Basically, the concept of praxis is contrasted with what? Sorry? Theorizing. With theorizing. Theorizing is what? In Marxism, or in general also, theorizing means what? You analyze, you write, you read, you extensively assess the social situation. That would be Marxist theorizing. But then theory alone is not an end in itself. What is the purpose of theorizing? If you understand Marxism, Marxist writings, what is the purpose of theorizing or if interpreting the social world? क्यों किया था Marx ने? Absolutely, to bring about social change. Marx has written, somewhere in his extensive writings, that philosophers and thinkers across the globe have interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it. So there is no point in understanding the social reality if we are not taking any concrete steps to change it for the better. Are you with me? So that is the emphasis on praxis और एक्शन. केवल एनालिसिस करने से क्या होगा अगर आप सिचुएशन को बेहतर के लिए बदल नहीं रहे हो? तो जागो, उठो, प्रोएक्टिवली कदम उठाओ टू क्रिएट द वर्ल्ड ऑफ टुमारो. ठीक है? दिस इज द मार्क्सिस्ट कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ praxis. Yani simply to take action. Don't just sit down analyzing and theorizing, but take steps to bring about that reality. that which you are writing about or theorizing about. ठीक है? लिखो. Praxis. Praxis refers to the process by which a theory is implemented या realized. By which a theory is realized या implemented. Full stop. Praxis refers to engaging in activity. Comma, implementing ideas and bringing about social change. Full stop. According to Marx, man creates and brings about changes in his world. Full stop. Marx considers that. Tell me, guys, before you continue writing, do lower animals, ants and lions and whichever, other than human, non-human beings, do they engage in praxis? Do they engage in praxis? Yes or no? No, they don't. Why? Because they do things. Of course, they take action, right? But that action is not praxis. For example, they hunt. Okay, they sleep, they do reproduce, whatever. They do a lot of things, but those are not praxis. Why? Praxis is what? Thought out action. That you want to create a certain kind of a social reality and taking active steps in pursuit of that end goal. Are you with me? That is praxis. लिखो, क्या लिखा है बेटी? Praxis is uniquely human. Is uniquely human and it distinguishes man from all other beings. Full stop. इस सेंटेंस में बताओ क्या है? टीलियोलॉजी या टोटोलॉजी या इकोलॉजिकल फैलेसी? टीलियोलॉजी भूल ही गए क्या है? सो इट्स ऑल अंधेरे में तीर. टीलियोलॉजी या टोटोलॉजी या इकोलॉजिकल फैलेसी? इतनी कन्विक्शन के साथ गलत जवाब दे रहे हो आप. That is what? Repeating the same thing. That's tautology. ठीक है? हाँ. So it's tautological in that sense. हाँ. Khair. Other animals merely engage. Continue writing. Other animals merely engage in compulsive unconscious acts. Full stop. Only man engages in conscious and productive activity. Full stop. Next para. Marxism emphasizes on praxis and not just kya? Theorizing, and not just theorizing. Karl Marx suggested that, wrote that, in quotation marks, philosophers across the globe, philosophers across the world have interpreted it The point, however, is to change it. I tell you the exact quote. It states, the philosophers have only interpreted the world. You can make modifications if you please. The philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. I repeat, more specifically, the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. Unquote. Quotes close. Full stop. Theoretical contradictions can be resolved only through practical activity. Only through practical activity. ठीक? That's about praxis. Moving on to the next Marxist concept, which is commodity fetishism. From this, there was a question in the recent past. Recent matlab last 2 to 4 years. Fetishism of commodities or commodity fetishism. What we'll do, first we'll understand the meaning of the term commodity, then we'll understand the meaning of fetishism, and then we'll combine the two understandings to understand commodity fetishism. Commodity, what do you understand by the word commodity in English? When you say something is a commodity, what do you mean? Raise your hands and tell me, what's a commodity? Yes? Sorry? Anything that can be bought and sold is a commodity. Is that all? Or is there something more to it? Yes? Brother? Yes? Anything with it has what Marx terms as there's something called, it has a use value. Or let me say, not any commodity, anything has a certain use value. What is the use value of a thing? Its utility to man, or which human need it satisfies. That is its use value. For example, what is the use value of water? In other words, what is the human need which water satisfies? It quenches thirst. It can be used for cooking, for washing clothes, etc. That is the use value or utility of water. What is the use value of cloth? कपड़ा क्या काम आता है? Simple सवाल. It covers the body, which helps to, say, protect us against the elements of nature, which helps to protect our anatomy being shown in public, if you want to hide it, and so on and so forth. ठीक है? Which, so use value of things are very incomparable or different from each other. What is the use value of a mobile phone? That it, so many things, primarily as a communication device, also as an alarm and this or that, camera and many other things, but primarily as its utility is that of a means of communication or a device for communication. Right? So when you look at things only in terms of their use value, you cannot exchange them. So say you have water and I have mobile phone. How do we exchange water and mobile phone? These are satisfying two very different human needs. Okay? So based on only use value or utility or its ability to satisfy certain human needs, commodity things cannot be exchanged. In other words, they cannot be bought and sold in the market. So what happens is that commodities also have, or things become commodities when they develop or have an exchange value. Exchange value means what? Simply a monetary price is assigned to different kinds of things. To different kinds of things. And that helps different players in the economy, different members of the society to exchange things which are very diverse use value. So for example, what is the exchange value of water? Say rupees 10 per liter, potable or drinking water, bottled water you get. Rupees 10 per liter. Right? What is the exchange value of this mobile phone? Say 12,000 rupees. Okay? Now can we exchange these? Yes. So if he has 120 units or 150 units of water and I have a mobile phone, then he can sell that thing he has, which is water, in the market and procure 15,000 rupees, out of which he'll give me 12,000 and take the mobile phone from me. Theek? So, based on things being assigned an exchange value, they turn into a commodity. Meaning, if things are assigned an exchange value, then they can be bought and sold in the marketplace. Clear? Or they can be exchanged. Clear? To likho. Various things have a use value. Full stop. The use value of an object refers to the utility of that thing or the human need that it satisfies. ठीक है? Full stop. Objects turn into commodities. Objects turn into commodities when they acquire क्या? an exchange value. When they acquire an exchange value, i.e., a value which can be expressed in the market. ठीक है? I'll make you write, but before that, just hear me out. Now, under capitalism, what happens, friends? That ultimately everything is commodified. Everything gets commodified. Meaning what? To each and everything, some exchange value gets assigned. An exchange value gets assigned to each and everything. लिखो. In Marxist theory, it is contended that in capitalist mode of production, eventually everything will be commodified. Everything will be commodified. Excuse me. Full stop. Things that were earlier given and taken. Things that were earlier given and taken, but not bought and sold. Will eventually enter into the world of commerce. Will eventually enter into the world of commerce. For example, friends, care. Is that a commodity? ख्याल रखना, ध्यान रखना. Is that something which is bought and sold in the market? Does it have a monetary price or an exchange value? Yes. Nurses are available for care at the rate of 2,500 rupees per hour. Who will care for the sick and the elderly? Yes or no? In fact, nowadays you have a Niti Aayog or government think tanks calculating the size of the care economy in India. Yes or no? So even such things, right, which were earlier given and taken but not bought and sold, now they will be bought and sold. So everything will become of the part of the marketplace. ठीक है? ये तो हुई commodity की बात. What do you, now let's try to understand the meaning of the word fetish or fetishism. Have we heard this, come across this concept? What is the meaning that we understand of it? In what context? Yes, Betty? Sorry? Pagalpan. Okay, I sense what you are saying. If you could explain it. Yes, brother? Forget commodity fetishism. I'm talking about fetishism or fetish. In the normal sense, like in English, we have heard it, most of us have come across this term in a sexual context, right? Or various kinds of sexual fetishes. Some people have a leather fetish or a foot fetish, etc. Yes? What does that mean? When you say somebody has a foot fetish or a leather fetish, we have like possibly read about it on the internet or something. Obsession, okay. Yeah? Worshipping, okay. So those with foot fetish might worship the feet of the, Fantasy. It's not so much fantasy. It's basically, when you, some sort of an intense, see, when we say in the sexual context that somebody has a foot fetish or a leather fetish, it bluntly means what? That it has an arousing effect. Somewhat of an, unjustified, unexplainable kind of an arousing effect on it turns him on, like, which won't turn on most other people. Right? So, fetish there means what? That for him, feet is or leather is very big a turn on, a very big a stimulant. Right? The original meaning of the term fetish comes from a very different context. Okay? It comes from a religious context. In religion, and Marx writes about it, fetish means what? Similar in meaning. Means what? That in many communities, in many tribes, the primitive people attribute a lot of power to certain stones or trees or objects. And those stones, they are, the people, they literally worship them, attributing a great deal of power and control to those things. So वो क्या करेंगे? उस स्टोन को दूध चढ़ाएंगे, दही चढ़ाएंगे, 16 सोमवार तक व्रत रखेंगे उसके लिए, and so on and so forth, like you people do, you and I do. Yes or no? शिवलिंग को क्या है हमारा? Fetish है. At the end of the day, clinically speaking, it's a stone. But we attribute a lot of power to that stone, that it has a lot of control over our lives. That is fetish. Take. That is the meaning of the term fetishism. Commodity fetishism, combining these two concepts, commodity fetishism means what? That in capitalism, commodities or things which are bought and sold in the market are considered as having immense importance or immense power over man. Things become all important. Things become all important in capitalist societies. At the end of the day, any commodity, it has an exchange value. What has helped it acquire that exchange value? मार्केट वार्केट नहीं होता है, ये मनी जो तुम बोल रहे हो ये तुम्हारा कमोडिटी फेटिशिज्म है. Sorry? Labor. It is due to the application of human labor. जब मजदूर खून पसीना एक करके चीजों को कुछ वर्क अपॉन करता है, ट्रांसफॉर्म करता है, that is when, like in my shirt factory, if you came earlier, if you remember, things worth 300 rupees were transformed into having an exchange value of 1100 due to the application of human labor. Right? So things do not have any innate qualities or innate value of their own, commodities. But in a capitalist society, when for all these stakeholders, I'll dictate, okay, for all these stakeholders, whether it is the buyers of products, whether it is the retailer, whether it is the manufacturer, whether it is the worker, the relationship between the commodity and the human labor is absent. Bluntly, when you go and purchase this desk or this mobile phone from the market, do you ever give a thought for the human labor power which has been spent to create this? The answer is simply no. We attribute an independent value to this product as if divorced from any human labor power. जो इसके लिए मजदूर का खून पसीना बहा है, उसके लिए बारे में हम सोचते ही नहीं. So we pay कि भैया we pay 75,000 because it is an Apple mobile phone, because Apple mobile phones are of such intrinsic value. We pay $15,000 because it's a Samsung mobile phone. Are you with me? So things acquire a life of their own, as if divorced from the human labor which has gone into their making. Asal mein, in reality, according to Marx, any value of a commodity is thanks to the labor which has gone into its making. But in the marketplace, neither the seller nor the buyer, nobody links the product of labor to human labor. This is commodity fetishism. Why we see things as having an intrinsic value of their own. Even social relations are commodified. For example, the buyer-seller relationship. When I go to the market to purchase this mobile phone, is it a relationship between me and the shopkeeper, Mr. Sharma? Is it a relationship between Mr. Agarwal and Mr. Sharma? Absolutely not. Sharma ji doesn't know and doesn't care who is Agarwal, and vice versa. What is it a relationship between? Buyer and seller कौन है? हाँ, money. For the seller of the product, I am what? The money in my pocket. And for me, who is the seller? The commodity that he hosts. Are you with me? So this relationship between persons has become a relationship between money and commodity, or a relationship between things. ये है commodity fetishism. ठीक? लिखो. In Marxism, commodity fetishism online students, please confirm you can hear me clearly by typing yes. So there are several yeses. So Priya, possibly it's some problem at your end. Please check. Other students, Priyanka, other students could hear me. Please write. क्या लिखा है बेटी? Refers to the situation in capitalism wherein commodities appear as depersonalized. Commodity appears as something depersonalized. ठीक है? मतलब the person aspect, the human dimension is hidden. Full stop. Commodity, which is a product of human labor, appears as if having some intrinsic value because of certain properties. Because of certain properties of the commodity itself. Full stop. In the capitalist economy, neither the sellers nor the buyers nor the producers attach human labor activity to the commodities. Full stop. Next para. The social relations of production. The social relations of production that ensure the production of commodities are hidden. Full stop. Social relations of production and exchange. I repeat, social relations of production and exchange. I repeat, social relations of production and exchange appear as relationship between things. Relationship between things. ठीक? A related, very close, similar concept is that of reification. Reification. First I'll explain, then I will dictate. What does it mean? This concept was given by not Karl Marx but a Marxist scholar by the name of George Lukács. George without an E at the end. Okay, spelled thus. The word reification means, roughly translated, thingification. Vastukaran, to make into a thing. Basically what Lukács suggests, that under capitalism, everything becomes eventually a thing. Even the seeming intangibles become thing. Intangibles like human emotions, they become or are expressed in the form of things. For example, is love a deep, popular human emotion? Is love a thing? No, of course it is in a capitalist economy. So if you love somebody forever, how do you express it? Through De Beers. Yes or no? If the love is more fleeting but intense, how do you express it? Through a rose. Purchased from where? The market. Or in Archie's cards. Or so on and so forth. Are you with me? So everything eventually becomes what? A thing. Or expressed in the form of a thing. ठीक? लिखो. Reification is a Marxist concept developed by George Lukács. Full stop. The word reification literally means, in single quotes, to make into a thing. to make into a thing. Full stop. Thus, according to Lukács, in capitalism, everything, even the seeming intangibles, हाँ, जो लगता है ऐसे हैं, seeming intangibles are thingified, or made into a thing. For instance, human emotions are expressed through things bought and sold in the कहाँ से? Marketplace. In the marketplace. Social relations are also made into a thing. Full stop. Thus, subjects are turned into objects. Subjects are turned into objects. Meaning what? Human beings. Okay? They are treated as passive, non-human entities. It's not just the buyer-seller relationship. Say a very intimate husband-wife relationship. That will also be affected by reification. The mother-child relationship will suffer from thingification या reification. अच्छी माँ कौन है? जो सर्फ एक्सेल में गंदे मेरे कपड़े जल्दी से धो दे. कहां से लाएगी सर्फ एक्सेल? मार्केट से. समझो? या 2 मिनट में मैगी बना दे. कहां से लाएगी? मार्केट से. आर यू विद मी? अच्छा पति कौन है? जो डी बियर्स ला दे. कहां से? मार्केट से. या फॉर द फ्रॉम पीपल फ्रॉम हम्बलर बैकग्राउंड, जो प्रेशर कुकर ला दे, बट कहां से लाएगा? मार्केट से. ठीक है? सो सोशल रिलेशनशिप्स आर ऑल्सो एक्सप्रेस्ड in terms of things. Had we applied the dialectical process to the material realm, had we understood, had I discussed that somewhere in passing? How the dialectical, the laws of dialectics apply. We had discussed in the context of Hegel, but how they apply in the Marxist, did we discuss that? Okay, so let me quickly, okay, we have understood, I'm not explaining, I'm just linking it to materialism. Why? Because dialectics is to be applied to the material realm according to Marx. Okay? So we had discussed 3 laws of dialectics. The first law was law of unity and conflict of opposites. Can you see that happening in the material realm? Law of unity and conflict of opposites. In every historical epoch, there are 2 main antagonistic classes, the haves and the have-nots. So are they in a situation of conflict? Clearly, because their class interests are mutually incompatible. So there is always conflict, sometimes overt and sometimes covert between them. Do they also unite Yes, they do, and that only that is how production can take place. So there you see the law of unity and conflict of opposites in operation. Second is law of transformation of quantitative changes into qualitative change. So how does every new historical epoch, every new mode of production come into existence? The changes start taking place within the framework of the old society, and they continue to happen for a very long period of time. For example, it was within a broadly feudal society that capitalist means of production, capitalist technology, etc. began to develop, and that kept on happening for several decades and generations and centuries. Yes or no? Meaning what? These are quantitative incremental changes. At what happens at a sudden juncture? The new productive forces cannot develop any further because of the constraint imposed by the old relations of production. So there is a qualitative transformation. A class struggle takes place and a qualitative transformation from the feudal society to, say, the capitalist society. Yani, incremental quantitative changes resulting in significant qualitative transformation. Clear? Thirdly, the third law is the law of negation of negation. Meaning what? That every new reality which comes forth comes about as a result of the destruction of a previous reality. So, the capitalist mode is a result of the destruction of the feudal society. So, it is a negation of the feudal society, which itself is a negation of the slave society, or which has come about as a result of the destruction of the ancient slave society. Yes or no? So it's a negation of negation. Likewise, feudalism is a negation of slave society, which is a negation of primitive communism. Communism is a negation of capitalism, which is a negation of feudalism. Okay? So there we see the three laws of dialectics in operation in the material realm. Okay? With that, let us bid a final goodbye to Karl Marx. Okay? And moving on. You can spend 5 years or 10 years of an elongated PhD studying Karl Marx and still won't be like done with it. But kya kare? Iसीलिए a lot of these communists, they are big time into academia. Because there's a lot to explore and many dimensions, many interpretations. We have just literally touched the surface. Khair, it's also slightly out of fashion, communism. Okay? Moving on to the next gentleman, Shri Max Weber. Max Weber. Now, Max Weber, friends, is, he is considered as amongst the last greats of sociology. Amongst the last greats of sociology. कहाँ का बंदा है ये? Sorry? Germany. Absolutely. Born in Prussia. Do we know any other guy born in Prussia? Marx. He is also German. Time-wise, chronologically, much later than Karl Marx. His writings, though they have been mostly in the 20th century. Okay, that's when he began writing all his this thing. He was like living in both 19th and 20th centuries, but his writings are primarily in the 20th century. Yet, many regard him as amongst one of the founding fathers of sociology. Though the chronology doesn't really fit. Are you with me? Sociology ka establishment ka time kya tha? Mid 19th century. when this guy was almost not even born. All the other founding fathers, chahe Comte hai, Spencer hai, Saint Simon, Marx, Durkheim, they were writing in that era. Yet, for his immense contribution to the social sciences, he is considered as one of the founding fathers of the discipline of sociology. A brief peek into his life. So, the gentleman was born in, he is German, he was born in Prussia. He studied, tukka maro, jaldi se, law. He studied law and spent, his main career, whatever time he was working, he worked as in the academia. He was teaching. When Weber was around 33 years of age, okay, so in about 1897 odd, he had a major fallout with his father. His father, who incidentally was also named Max Weber. Okay, so we refer to them as Max Weber Senior and Max Weber Junior. And so he had a major this thing with his father, bitter, acrimonious kind of this thing. And 2 months after that heated exchange, his father passed away. Good. Okay, so this guy then went into long period of depression and suffered from almost chronic mental illness. He tried for a few years but couldn't cope up with his academic duties. So then he quit teaching. Then he then he wandered about, went to Italy, spent some time there, went to US, spent some time there. Beach mein he picked up teaching assignments, but then would leave them somewhat abruptly. Couldn't focus on an academic career. But he did write extensively. Then by about late, the second decade of the 20th century, he contracted Spanish flu. Now, Spanish flu then was raging all over the world. It in fact wiped out approximated 5% of the world's population. And one of those 5% was Weber. Before his death, he was having an extramarital affair with one of his former students who was married to another of his former students. That lady actually is, one of the leading lights. She's one of the pioneers amongst women in social sciences in Germany. Okay, not much this thing, but interesting. And she was also having an affair with his brother, Alfred Weber. Okay, with Max Weber's brother, Alfred Weber. So, that is that. And, और क्या? फिर ये मर गए. And he is regarded as the founder of interpretative sociology or Weberian sociology. Why must we get concerned about his relationship with his father? Too personal a matter. But we do mention it because it it left an impression throughout his extensive writings. Throughout his extensive writings. For example, Weber, Weber's father was a bureaucrat, and Weber wrote extensively on the nature of modern bureaucracy. His father was a politician, also a politician. He wrote extensively on the nature of politics, power, and authority. His father had a difficult relationship with Weber's mother. His mother was a devout religious lady, while his father was used to the good life. Okay, and out of that clash was born his focus on the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. He wrote about the relationship between Protestant religious beliefs. His mother was a Protestant, and the spirit of capitalism, or how it affects economic behavior. Okay? Max Weber was also junior, the main guy. He was also he was an advisor to the committee which drafted the German constitution, the Weimar Constitution. This is the constitution which Hitler perverted to kind of, usurp or kind of assume to himself draconian powers. And he became a dictator. Okay? So he was part of that committee. So he was a big shot in that sense. He was also a failed politician. His father, on the other hand, was a successful politician. So major daddy issues he had. Okay? That, there's this another wonderful writer I'm forgetting with major daddy issues. Yeah. Can you help me? He's written this, The Metamorphosis. Sorry? Kafka. Bilkul. Wonderful, yeah. Not in sociology or anything, but in general, very wonderful depiction of power, authority, arbitrariness. खैर वेबर के उतने सिवियर नहीं थे काफका जैसे, बट थे डैडी इश्यूज. चलिए, so in our UPSC sociology syllabus, the topics mentioned under Weber are as follows. Firstly, social action. Social action. Secondly, ideal types. Ideal types. And when we discuss ideal type, now this is a part of his methodology. We will discuss another dimension of his methodology, though not stated in the syllabus, but questions have been asked in the past. Verstehen. सॉरी, समझा दीजिए, अभी तो मैंने पढ़ाई नहीं है. आई एम जस्ट सेइंग दिस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ वर्स्टहन has been asked in the exam. It's not mentioned in the syllabus, but we will study. These both are part of Weberian methodology. Thirdly, authority. Authority. Fourthly, bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. And lastly, Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. ठीक है? Beginning with the first topic. Social action. So for Weber friends, social action is the fundamental unit of analysis in any, when we are trying to develop any understanding of society. Social action is the fundamental unit of analysis. While trying to develop any understanding of social life. So what is sociology according to Weber? Sociology is the systematic study of social action. Sociology is the systematic study of social action. What constitutes the subject matter of sociology? For Weber, it is social action. When we study sociology, what do we study? We study social action. What is this social action? Let us try to appreciate. Please write a simple definition. According to Weber, social action refers to the meaningful act. Refers to the meaningful act which is oriented in its course. I repeat, social action is the meaningful act which is oriented in its course. Very small, very comprehensive definition of social action. There are two key terms in this small definition that help us to understand what is social action. One is meaningful. The other is oriented, that it is oriented in its course. What do we mean when we say it is meaningful? When we say an act is meaningful, it means that the social actor attaches a subjective meaning to that action. The term meaningful here means that the social actor attaches a subjective meaning. I repeat, the term meaningful here means that the social actor attaches subjective meaning to the action. What do we mean when we say it is oriented in its course? Oriented towards, the word oriented means now oriented towards something. Towards who or what? No, not to achieve something. Oriented towards other actors, counter actors, other social actors. What do we mean when you say it is oriented towards other social actors? That it takes into account the behavior of others, or seeks to influence the behavior of others, or is influenced by the presence of others. Simply, whatever a social actor does, keeping others in mind, okay, that's a social action. Clear? Or trying to influence others, or being influenced by them, that's a social action. Clear? For example, I am teaching right now. I am a social actor. Okay? Is this a social action? Teaching a class of students, is this a social action? Why? Is it meaningful? So do I attach a meaning to my own actions? Yes, I do. Is it oriented in its course? In other words, is it trying to influence others, or is influenced by the presence of others? The answer is clearly yes. Yes or no? So it is a social action. Many of you are nodding your heads. Is that nodding of the head a social action? Why? Do you attach a meaning to it? Yes, you do. समझ आ रहा है. I'm getting it. That's the meaning that you attach. And is it oriented in its course? Yes. So when you are doing that, you are conveying to perhaps the teacher, perhaps fellow students, that you are in agreement or in sync with what is being taught. That is what you are trying to convey. Yes or no? So that's a social action. When we pray together, when we chant Om in the beginning of the lecture, is that a social action? Yes or no? Yes, it is. It carries meaning for the actor, and again, it is influenced by or seeks to influence others. I'm mindful of your presence. Simply जो भी मैं करूं, आपको अपने जहन में रख के, with you in my mind, my thoughts, that is a you meaning other actors, and it attach meaning to it. So it's a social action. But if I chant Om in my room alone, is that a social action? No. Then it will not count as a social action. So the act of praying alone in one's room is not a social action, but the act of praying collectively is a social action. Are you with me? Say you are sitting in a restaurant and eating your meal. Is that a social action? Eating your meal in a restaurant, is it a social action? Yes or no? You bet it is. You bet it is. So you eat your meal in a particular manner. Say you follow basic table manners, or that you use a fork or a spoon or certain cutlery in a certain way. Why? Because you are mindful of the presence of others. Are you with me? But sitting alone in your room, you might eat like an animal. Right? हाथ से खाओगे, चाटोगे, सब करोगे. Huh? That is because then you are not mindful of the presence of others or what others are thinking. Clear? In the classroom, many of you, as we speak, as I speak mostly, many of you are blinking your eyes. You just did. Is that a social action? The blinking of the eyes, I'm blinking mine, you are blinking yours. We all do in a minute, many times. Is that a social action? Why? It is not meaningful. We are simply doing it involuntarily. Yes or no? Winking is a social action. So I attach a certain meaning to it, and it is oriented in its course. Or trying to influence others, or is influenced by others. Okay? So we get the drift. Social action, according to Sri Weber, can be of 4 types. Very simple typology or very simple classification. The first is affective social action. What do you mean by affective? You've come across this word earlier. Batao. Affective, affectively neutral. Yes, emotional, or in other words, it's also referred to as emotional social action. Affective or emotional social action. Now, when is a social action considered affective? I'll make you right. But simply, when it is driven by emotions, that's an emotional social action. Okay? For example, a child breaks a vase and the mother gives him a tight slap. It is what? Driven by an emotion. Kya emotion? Anger. So it's what? Emotional or affective social action. Or you run into a long lost friend of your school days. You guys were very close back then, but since you've lost touch, and you hug him or her tight, then it is what? Emotional or affective social action, driven by the emotion of love. Are you with me? What emotions are we talking about? Emotional social action? Emotions like? क्या होते हैं emotions? Typically intense feelings of, बताओ ना, love, hatred, anger, jealousy, blah blah. तो लिखो, affective or emotional social action. A social action which is based on underlying emotions such as fear, love, anger, etc. Based on underlying emotions of the social actor is known as affective social action. Affective social action is anchored in the emotional state of the actor. Anchored in the emotional state of the actor. Write an example or two. Mother slapping a child in rage. Or if you get into a street corner fight, yes or no? Fist fight kind of a thing. How many of you have got into that kind of a thing? Quite a few people. It happens to so many of us. Or if you've heard of road rage cases on Delhi roads. These are all examples of affective or emotional social action. Second, traditional social action. Traditional social action. I'll make you write. Traditional social action is what? Simply when you do something because it is a part of the tradition. You are simply following tradition. You're doing something because things have been done that way since a long period of time in your society or community. Are you with me? So, without application of much mind, without being driven by emotion or rationality, you simply do things because they are the done thing. You follow certain customs or conventions. They are what? Traditional social action. For example, you have, when you have elderly relatives visiting your place, what do? You touch their feet. Dhanyavad bhaiya. Now, do you do so because, sorry? पैसा मिलेगा? Is that the governing thought? कि पाँव छुएंगे तो पैसा मिलेगा? Both sides are petty in that case, I must suggest. जो पाँव छूने पे पैसा दे और जो पाँव इसलिए छुए कि पैसा मिले. But typically, we don't do it कि पैसा मिलेगा, or we don't do it because we feel genuine respect or love or affection towards those elderly. We simply do it as a matter of custom. घर आए तो एक मैकेनिकल सा रिफ्लेक्स रिएक्शन सा हो गया, घर में बूढ़े दिखे झुक के छू लिए, है ना? सो दैट इज व्हाट? ट्रेडिशनल सोशल एक्शन. ठीक है, लिखो. Traditional social action refers to those social actions which are guided by custom, or done in accordance with established conventions and long held traditions. ठीक. The third is Zweck rational social action. Zweck rational social action. It is also referred to as formal rationality. Formal rationality, or also referred to as goal-oriented rational social action. Goal-oriented rational social action. ठीक. Again, I'll explain, then dictate. These are what? Those actions, those social actions where the goals and the means both are chosen rationally. First, you choose the goals rationally, and then you choose the best means to achieve those goals. Again, how? Rationally. For example, most actions in the world of business are which type? Zweck rational or goal-oriented rational social actions. In other words, what is the end goal in the world of business? Profit maximization. So that goal has been chosen rationally, and what are the means that we then adopt? Again, those means are also chosen rationally. For example, if say I am a real estate developer. I'm a real estate developer. So why will I develop or make property? To maximize my returns on whatever investment I make. That's the end goal. Now which route or which means will I choose? Whether I'll make commercial real estate or क्या होती है दूसरी? Housing या residential real estate. Whether I'll construct in Karol Bagh area or Dwarka or XYZ, Gurgaon, will depend on what? Rational considerations. That I have a budget of say 10 crores, within which, so what kind of land parcels can I acquire in a Dwarka or a Karol Bagh or a whatever? What will be the construction cost? What are the per unit selling cost of the units? So where will I be able to maximize my profits? Clear? That is what? Zweck rational or goal-oriented rational social action. लिखो. Zweck rational social action are those social actions in which both the goals and the means are chosen rationally. Both the goals and the means are chosen rationally. Full stop. The clearly defined goals are pursued, are sought to be achieved through the best possible means. keep giving examples alongside as we write the definitions. For example, the actions or most actions of a businessman in a capitalist economy pertaining to the marketplace. In his family, for example, the same businessman may exhibit what? Kaise action? Affective. Yes or no? Fourthly, fourth type of social action is worth rational social action. I hope it's visible. Yeah. Worth rational social action. Also referred to as substantive rationality. Substantive rationality. Zweck rational was formal rationality. This is substantive rationality. And worth rational social action is also referred to as value oriented rational social action. Value oriented rational social action. Again, first I'll explain, then dictate. So those social actions where the goals are not rational. The goals may not be rational, but the means to achieve those goals, whatever those goals are rational. The goals are determined by values. By one's values. For example, once you become a senior bureaucrat, and inshallah you will, then those businessmen we were talking about, they will visit you with bags of money, offering you a bribe in return of favors. क्या करोगे? ले लेंगे. तो इनका एक्शन कैसा है? अगर ये ले लेंगे तो इनका एक्शन कैसा है? Apart from being corrupt, Zweck rational है. कोई है ऐसे जो नहीं लेंगे? चलिए लाज रख ली. सो आप क्यों नहीं लेंगे? क्या इनका एक्शन रैशनल है जो नहीं लेंगे, या इनका इरैशनल है? In reference to the values that they want to uphold. So if I want to uphold the values of integrity and honesty in public life, in the context of those values, is their action of rejecting the bribe rational? Yes or no? The answer is yes, it is rational. It is which type? Worth rational. So their goal of upholding certain values of honesty, etc., may not be rational, or may not lead to benefit maximization. Are you with me? For the individual, but it does, whatever his values are, it does help the individual to uphold those values, the kind of path or the means which he has chosen. Are you with me? So this is a worth rational social action. लिखो. A social action is worth rational when it is rational in terms of certain values that the social actor, an action is worth rational when it is rational in terms of certain values that the social actor wants to uphold. ठीक. Full stop. In these cases, the goal itself may be value driven and not rational. Maybe the goal itself may be value driven and not rational, but the means to achieve it are rational. ठीक. Means to pursue it are rational. Clear? These are the 4 types of social actions. Now you tell me, clear, simple? You tell me, I have come here to the institute by car. By car. Okay? Which type of social action is this? Me coming to, I'm a social actor. My social action is coming to the place of work by car, a chauffeur driven car. Which type of a social action is it? Zweck rational or any other type? Sorry? Traditional social action or any other? Zweck rational? Whether you are saying Zweck rational or you are saying traditional, my response is, how the hell do you know? Who knows? What does it depend on? Which type of action it is? Who knows? The social actor knows. Why? Which type of action it qualifies to be is determined by the meaning attached by who? The social actor. So, if I am coming by my car because it's the first car that I purchased from my own hard-earned money and I'm in love with my car, then it is affective social action. मैं तो इसी गाड़ी से जाऊंगा. ठीक है? If I'm coming by car because I evaluated various options that I have to reach, the end goal is that I have to reach my office in time, and the various options available are I can travel by metro, which will cost me X money and Y time. I can travel by bus, which will cost me X2 money and Y2 time. I can travel by car, which will cost me X1, X3 money and Y3 time. And then, considering these various options, I zeroed down on car as my preferred mode of transport. Then it is Zweck rational. Are you with me? If I am traveling by car because when my father used to go to his place of work, he used to travel by this car. When my grandfather used to travel to his place of work, he used to travel by this car. So it is our family tradition to use this particular car. Must be a, I don't know what, Maruti 800 or something, older. Then it is traditional social action. So the same action may be classified into different types depending on the subjective meaning attached to it by who? The actor. ठीक? So you can't speak for me, but you can speak for yourself. So tell me, let's put the onus on you. You have chosen sociology as your optional in the UPSC exam. Which type of action, and don't speak for others, just speak for yourself. Which type of action is it? For how many of you it is affective social action? For how many of you it is Zweck rational? For the bulk of you it is Zweck rational. For how many of you it is traditional? Okay. So, see, it depends on the social actor. The same social action, all of you have done the same thing, but the meaning you attach to your own actions is different. And depending on that meaning, which type of social action it is will vary. If you've chosen the subject by considering various options, so UPSC gives you 25 plus subjects to choose from. You evaluated the major ones. Okay, this one is ruled out because I don't have a background, etc. Socio I can have without a background, but I can also have anthro or pol science and so on. Then in anthro it will take X time, in pol science it will take Y time, in sociology it will take Z time. The resources are available, faculty is there, books are there, and so, reasonably samajh aa raha hai, or there's a certain connect. Then it is which type? Zweck rational social action. But if you've picked the subject because you're in love with sociology, yeah, then it is affective. If you've chosen sociology because when your father appeared for the exam, he chose sociology. When your grandfather appeared for this exam, he chose sociology. Then it is traditional. Unlikely, but you always have all kinds of people. Yeah, and all kinds of social actions. Simply meaning what, or what I'm trying to underline is a social action may be classified into different types depending on the meaning attached to it by the actor. And that meaning is subjective. So it would vary from actor to actor. Clear? So हमको ये समझना है. This is the subject matter of sociology, which is what? We have to study social action. Let us see how we study social action. For that, we have to acquaint ourselves with Weberian methodology. Don't murmur about break. I need it more than you. Okay? But then we have an agenda to meet. Agenda matlab not sly or surreptitious, but something we need to achieve. I'll give you a break after this topic and then we'll recommence. So, 2 topics are left for the day. Agar badhne doge aage. So, there are 3 broad strands or pillars of Weberian methodology. Okay? There are 3 main components of Weberian methodology. Namely, causal pluralism. Verstehen. And ideal type. Today we will be finishing this. So I'll be giving you a break after Verstehen. And then we'll do ideal type. Sorry? Causal pluralism, Verstehen, and ideal type. Let us quickly, we'll be doing causal pluralism. In syllabus, only ideal type is mentioned and Verstehen is also asked. Okay? Causal pluralism means what? Simply, it means that Weber was of the view that to explain any social phenomena, there are multiple causative factors. If you analyze any social phenomena, there are multiple causative factors, or there is a plurality of causative factors to understand any social phenomena. So if anything is happening, it is happening due to a multiplicity of causes, simply. You want me to dictate? Then you wonder why it's taking time. Causal pluralism means that, according to Weber, that there are multiple causative factors that are at play behind any social phenomena under investigation. Multiple causative factors are at play behind any social phenomena under investigation. किसी भी चीज के कई कारण होते हैं, सिंपली. किसी भी चीज के कई कारण होते हैं. सो वेबेरियन मेथोडोलॉजी or Weber's methodology is in stark contrast to monocausal explanations. Is in stark contrast to monocausal explanations. Do you know of any theory which emphasizes on a particular factor? Only one? Which? Marx's theory, which focuses only on economic factors. So Weberian methodology is in stark contrast to monocausal explanations like Marx's overemphasis on economic factors. ठीक है? So to explain anything in society, Marx looks at the economy. I repeat, Weber's methodology is in stark contrast to monocausal explanations of social phenomena, such as Karl Marx's emphasis on economic factors to analyze any social change. Researchers, friends, I am continuing with causal pluralism. As researchers, we have certain limitations. Researchers, after all, are human beings. So we may not be able to investigate all the causative factors that are at play. For example, Weber himself studied how capitalism developed because of Protestant religious beliefs. How the religious beliefs of the Protestants led to or caused the development of capitalism. Okay? Weber wrote extensively on this issue. But when he does so, he is not denying the existence of other causative factors. So Weber is very clear in his writings that there are multiple factors which would have contributed to the development of capitalism. But मैं वेबर एक इंसान हूं. I have certain limitations. I have limitations of time, of resources, of knowledge. Yes or no? So I do not have the bandwidth to explore all the causative factors that have led to the development of capitalism. So I am focusing only on how Protestant beliefs shaped the emergence of modern capitalism. समझ गए? इसलिए वेबेरियन सोशियोलॉजी को एक हम्बल सोशियोलॉजी माना जाता है. नॉट लाइक मार्क्स कि एक यूनिवर्सल झाड़ू चला दिया, सब जगह ऐसे ही होता है. ठीक है? और इसी कारण की वजह से होता है. क्लियर? दिस इज कॉजल प्लूरलिज्म. अरे सेकेंड वॉज वर्सन. Take a break. Okay? If you must, we take a break first, then we'll complete both topics. So let the break be short, say 2.5 minutes. I might stretch it, okay? But be back by around 2.5 minutes. Please settle down. Now, Verstehen and ideal type are a part of Weberian methodology. Right? So, what do we have to study? We have to study? Kya? But what do we have to study according to Weber when we are trying to understand society? We have to study social action. The question is, how do we do that? The word Verstehen literally means what? इतनी भी जर्मन नहीं आती. It means to understand. The word Verstehen literally means to understand or to interpret. Or to interpret. What do we have to understand as researchers, as sociologists? What do we have to understand or interpret? Sorry? The meaning attached by the actor to his actions. That is what we need to understand. How will you do it? Say you are a researcher. Forget Weber for a bit. Apply, think logically. How will you understand any social action? Say you see a woodcutter cutting wood in the forest. You see a person eating laddu. You see a person teaching. Anything. All of these are social actions. And you have to now make sense of, you have to understand this social action. How will you do it? Forget Weber, think logically and tell me. कोई भी social action को कैसे समझोगे? हाँ वही तो कैसे समझोगे? How? How will you go about doing that? Brother? So one very common, popular method is you simply ask. सर आप पढ़ाते हो, क्यों पढ़ाते हो? भाई आप वुड काट रहे हो, क्यों काट रहे हो? It's a popular method. The problem with it is, people often lie. आप मुझसे पूछोगे सर क्यों पढ़ाते हो? क्या बोलूंगा मैं? हाँ? For the love of teaching. Yes or no? Which may or may not be the correct answer. Right? So, people have various reasons to not be truthful. It's a popular method. You simply ask people, but that might not reveal to you the true picture. Then what do you do? Brother? You think what they are thinking. Good. How do you do that? Very good. Yes, you must. And how? Analyze the influence of that work. How that work has brought about change. I mean, that sounds very biggish, you know. Big things, impactful things. But what about mundane activities? Absolutely. So the first step, or the first part, this Verstehen method has broadly two aspects or two parts to it. The first is actuals Verstehen. Actuals Verstehen. Which means what? Direct observational understanding. Direct observational understanding. Simply, you can gather much information through direct observation. Yes or no? If you simply observe the actor in social action, you can deduce a fair bit. For example, how much does he seem to be engaged in the activity which he is doing? Yes or no? You will have some visual cues to which class he belongs to, he or she belongs to. Yes or no? You will get to know the gender of the person, the first visual cue that you get when you meet another social actor. We classify people as based on gender, man or woman. Yes or no? You will have great idea about the age bracket or some idea, rough idea about the age bracket to which the person belongs. Are you with me? So a lot of information you can gather by direct observation. You can observe the frequency with which the actor performs that act. Are you with me? So a lot of things, lot of info you can gather simply by direct observation. That is the first step in developing an understanding. All right? However, friends, this step in itself is not sufficient to capture the whole of social reality. To capture the whole of social reality. WHOLE, of course. Why? Now this method is quite similar to the method used by who? Positivists, absolutely. They also do that. They also capture what is observable. But then that only shows you the visible dimension, visible aspects of reality. Yes or no? You cannot decode the meaning which the actor attaches. Meanings are internal to the actor. Right? That you cannot decode by mere observation. For that you go beyond. So this is an important part, but not a complete method in itself. So then you go to the second part, which is kya? Eclairand's verse then. Eclairand's verse then. ठीक है? अच्छा मैं आ गया बीच में. Which means what? Empathetic understanding or empathetic listening. The second step is Eclairand's Verstehen, meaning empathetic understanding or empathetic listening. Quickly, what do we mean by empathy in English? Sorry? Feeling what the other person is feeling. Good. And how is it different from sympathy? When you sympathize with somebody, you pity them from a position of relative advantage. Are you with me? So empathy is different from that. When I sympathize with you, I am like bichara garib. But I am speaking from a position of privilege. So I'll give you $10, which a lot of us do on red lights to beggars, etc. We sympathize. Yeah? Empathy would be different. So if a urchin or a small street kid steals your wallet, if you can empathize with him, meaning what? If you say stayed hungry for a day, then you can empathize with the situation that that guy has gone hungry for 1.5 days. So you can understand his situation. Are you with me? You can see yourself in his situation. So you can feel what he is feeling. That is empathy. Clear? What is listening? Have you heard of the word listening? It's used in reference to? कहाँ पे यूज देखा है, इस्तेमाल हुआ है? Government work related, this work is used, listening agents and listening offices people have. Simply, bluntly in government work parlance, it refers to setting bithana. To establish, to make the right connections with the right people, grease the palms if need be, ensure that your work is done smoothly in government departments. That is listening. Okay? So listening essentially means what? To establish a connection. To establish a connection. So empathetic listening means what? That the researcher establishes a connection with the social actor. What kind of a connection? Connection, an empathetic connection. So the researcher feels, understands, thinks what the social actor is feeling or thinking. Are you with me? So लिखो, Eklevandis Verstehen means that the researcher imaginatively places himself in the shoes of the social actor. In order to decipher the subjective meaning that the actor attaches to his action. Now tell me, friends, if I am a researcher, I am the researcher in question, can I understand or interpret the meaning attached to her actions by a woman or a female social actor? I, being a man, can I understand the reasons behind the motives, the meanings attached by a female social actor? Can a Brahmin likewise decode the meaning attached by a Dalit to his social actions? Can an American researcher likewise understand the meanings behind the actions of an Indian citizen? Yes or no? Can we or can we not? Yes or no? According to Weber, the answer is an emphatic yes. We can. You need not belong to the same social category or group in order to feel what the actor is feeling. एक sentence लिखिए. One need not be Caesar. One need not be Caesar in order to understand Caesar. One need not be Caesar in order to understand Caesar. Caesar की स्पेलिंग चेक कर लेना, ए ई इधर उधर हो सकते हैं. Caesar meaning king. Okay, literally meaning king. One need not be a king in order to understand a king. That's what he's saying. One need not be a woman in order to understand a woman. One need not be a Brahmin to understand a Brahmin. Are you with me? One need not be an Indian in order to understand the actions of an Indian. This means what? With this one sentence, Weber is emphasizing upon the very wide application of the method of Verstehen. The method of Verstehen has very wide application across time, across cultures. So if I'm a man, can I understand the actions of a woman? Yes, what I have to do? Only imaginatively place myself in the shoes of the woman social actor. I have to consider myself in her situation. Are you with me? And then I can decipher the meaning she attaches to her actions. Clear? Weber himself, he wrote the Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. How the religious beliefs of the Protestants, several centuries before him, affected their actions and led to the development of capitalism. They were living in different eras. Are you with me? Separated by several centuries. And yet Weber was able to decipher the meaning attached by those social actors to their actions. What prompted them to behave in a certain way. So according to Weber, the method of Verstehen has very wide application across time and across cultures. The researcher need not belong to the same social category as the researched or as the social actors in order to understand their social actions. Clear? ठीक? So this is Weber's method. You'll have to bear with me. So please be mentally prepared for another 15 odd minutes on the lower side. Okay? Now tell me, friends, in any society, how many social actors are there? Sorry? Scores of them. Lakhs and millions of people are there in any society, especially modern large-scale societies. Yes or no? Each social actor engages in how many social actions in a day? Again, a very large number. There are many social actors performing innumerable social actions on a daily basis. So as a researcher, मैं तो बावला हो जाऊंगा. Today I am a Dalit woman and tomorrow I am an industrialist. The third day I am a tribal in the jungles of Chhattisgarh doing hula lala. And the fourth, I am a farmer in the fields of Punjab. तो मेरे को तो multiple personality disorder होना तय है. And I try to get into the fields of these diverse social actors. Point is, friends, that social reality is very vast. It is very complex. It is very, very complicated. So much so that Weber says that social reality is essentially incomprehensible. It is beyond comprehension. It cannot be understood. So what do? Job छोड़ दें? As researchers, how do we make sense of this very complex, very complicated, almost in seeming infinite variety of social actions and subjective meanings attached to those actions? What we do is, we develop ideal types. To make sense of this very complex and complicated social reality, the researchers develop ideal types. What are ideal types, friends? Very basic level, at a very fundamental level, ideal types are models. I'll dictate also. Okay, rest assured. These are simply models or concepts that a researcher develops. Ideal types are models of the social world which the researcher develops to make some sense of the incomprehensible, vast, unorganized, complex social reality. Models are nothing new to us. You and I, we have all developed models since childhood. In schools, have you made any models? Which models have you made? For school projects, etc., did you ever make models? Which? Sorry? Windmill, volcano, water cycle. Sorry? Rainwater harvesting. Complex, huh? Very complex. So these kind of various models we've made from volcanoes and cloud formation, solar systems, this or that. Yes or no? Now what is a model? Let us try to appreciate. Let us try to make a model of a complex. Let us take the most complex of them all. Say the solar system. It's again chaotic, big, vast, complicated. Yes or no? Having infinite elements. But when we make a model of the solar system, help me here. This ball is what? Sun. Then here? Then somewhat bigger. Then Mars. Kaisa? Smaller. Then Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest, but not as big as the sun. Then you have Saturn, and something like this rings it has, and then you have Neptune and Pluto. Okay? Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. Then in our model, these are following the sun in a elliptical orbit. Or if we are younger, we'll say a circular orbit. If we are slightly grown up, we'll say elliptical orbits. Right? This is our model of the solar system. You also have something called asteroids. Between these two, I think, Jupiter and this thing. So we show that as Kuda Karkat. Yeah, 2 lines of that between this thing. This is broadly our solar system model. Okay, that we made in schools. Say it's a 3D model made of cardboard or thermocol sheets. And here what will you show for the sun? It's a bright orange or a yellow ball that you will use for the sun. And then you will have smaller balls here. For the earth you will show a blue colored ball, somewhat bigger than these balls. And so on and so forth. ठीक है? ये क्या तैयार हो गया हमारा model of the solar system. Now this model of the solar system that we have developed, does it capture all the complexity and diversity of this very complex phenomena called the solar system? No. Clearly it doesn't. A model therefore, or an ideal type is therefore a very oversimplified version of the complex reality which it is trying to represent. Yes or no? So, only certain aspects of the reality. Does it capture all the aspects? Clearly not. It only captures some of the aspects. For example, in our school models, this model captures the relative size of the different celestial bodies. So for the sun, we'll use the biggest size ball and so on and so forth. Or the color, that too as visible for the human eye spectrum, right, for the different celestial objects. It does not show, for instance, their gaseous composition, that whether there is life on a particular planet or not. So many other things. Are you with me? So some aspects of the social reality we have selected and developed a simplified model of that reality, complex reality which we are trying to portray. Clear? Now let us try to develop likewise a model of a social phenomena. Say democracy, a popular political system in modern societies. In modern times, it is today one of the most popular forms of government. Help me develop a model of democracy quickly. What all elements you like me to include in it? Freedom of speech. One sec. Freedom of speech and expression. Don't mention all the chapters of the Indian Constitution for God's sake. Then you said free and fair. Regular or irregular? Regular elections or separation of powers or certain rights, है ना? Rights to life, to liberty, etc. or universal adult franchise or free media, or you have a free body to oversee the conduct of the independent body, such as the election commission, to oversee the conduct of the elections. ठीक? Or a vibrant civil society. ठीक है? वगैरह वगैरह. This is our model of a social reality called democracy. Does this model of democracy capture all the aspects of a democratic political system? The answer is clearly no. Only some of the key elements we have chosen and represented in our model of democracy. So what I am trying to draw, the point I am trying to drive home is that ideal types are models which do not capture the whole of the reality. They only capture some of the aspects of the social reality under investigation. ठीक है? दूसरी बात ये बताओ, why do we call them ideal types? What do you mean by the word ideal? In English, what do you mean by the word ideal? Sorry? Perfect. In Hindi, you would use the term Adarsh. Adarsh. In Hindi, you would say that Shravan Kumar was the ideal son. Adarsh putra tha. Matlab, others should aspire to be like him. Right? The perfect or the model kid, in that sense. The ideal kind of a kid. This is not ideal in that sense. When we say an ideal type of democracy or an ideal of type of bureaucracy which Weber developed, it does not mean the perfect or the best or something to strive for. It is not meant in that sense. We call it ideal type because it is made by the researcher using his ideas. It is ideal only in that limited sense, not in the sense of perfect. ठीक है? लिखो. An ideal type, according to Weber, is a model of the social reality. Is a model of the social reality under investigation. Developed by the researcher using his ideas. I repeat, an ideal type is a model of the social reality developed by, of the reality under investigation, developed by the researcher using his ideas. Full stop. An ideal type does not capture all the aspects of social reality. Like we have discussed at length, an ideal type does not capture all the aspects of the social reality. Full stop. The researcher while constructing the ideal type selects only some aspects, selects only some aspects of the phenomena under investigation and highlights them. ठीक है? Stop writing and begin understanding again. We've developed this model of democracy. Now, take any democracy across the globe. is, say you write free media, right, or freedom of press. Is the media or the press truly free in any democracy? Say in our democracy, we are also a vibrant democracy. Is the media in India truly free? Yes or no? No. So there are various corporate interests, political pressures, yes or no? Advertising lobbies, etc., which would impact the freedom of the media. Yes or no? It's not a truly free media in all senses. But while developing the model, we wrote what? Free media. We didn't write, somewhat free media, but somewhat affected by political lobbies and this and that. Why? And none of you objected to that. Likewise, we said free and fair regular elections. Are elections really and truly free and fair, etc.? Or not? No. There may be employment of money power, muscle power, which affects the conduct, the free and fair conduct of the elections. But we wrote what? Free and fair elections. We didn't write mostly free and fair elections, but somewhat affected by money and muscle power. In other words, friends, when we develop a model, we do what? We portray things in their extreme or in their pure form. In their pure form, undiluted, unadulterated kind of form. So when we talk about media freedom, we say free media. We don't say somewhat free media. Are you with me? We say free and fair and regular elections. Universal adult franchise. We don't say universal adult franchise to hai, but constrained by, say, caste and this or that. Are you with me? So, likewise, when you develop the model of the solar system, you use that, what kind of figure you used for the earth? You used a round ball. But is the earth round? We didn't use a geoid shaped ball. We used a round ball. Are you with me? So that is how we develop models or ideal types. By stretching things to their extreme. Whatever elements we are depicting, we depict them in an extreme kind of a fashion. ठीक है? तो लिखो. Ideal type. The ideal type is a pure type. Is a pure type. So will you find, friends, before you write further, will you find such kind of a democracy with freedom of speech and expression and free and fair and regular elections and blah blah anywhere in the world? No, you will not. Will you find any solar system resembling that thermocol model that you had developed? Absolutely not. So what I am trying to say, that in the empirical world, in the real world, things are quite different from these models or ideal types that we develop. Yes or no? लिखो. क्या लिखा है last sentence बिटिया? Full stop. In empirical reality, the social phenomena captured by the ideal type may be quite different. Full stop. Thus, the ideal type is fictional in character. The ideal type is fictional in character. So friends, tell me, does it mean that the ideal type has nothing to do with the reality? Does it or does it not? We are saying that in the social world, in the real world, things are quite different. than how they are shown in the ideal type or in the model that we develop. Does it mean the ideal type is completely disconnected from the reality? Again, absolutely not. The model is developed only when you have an acquaintance with the empirical reality, only when the researcher has to have a thorough understanding of various democracies before he can develop a model of democracy. Yes or no? तो लिखो. Ideal types are models or concepts developed by a researcher after a fairly thorough acquaintance with the empirical reality. ठीक है? But then why do we say it's fictional in character? Because what we show in the ideal type, that exists nowhere. That literally exists nowhere. Right? Likho. It's only that one will not see a one-on-one correspondence between the social phenomena in the empirical world and how it is represented in the ideal type. ठीक है? Next para. The ideal type is more like a caricature. More like a caricature than a photograph. It's more like a caricature than a photograph. Meaning what? What's a caricature? A cartoon. What we are saying is, so for example, if you see the cartoon, okay, any person being depicted in a caricatured form, say take a popular figure like Lalu Yadav. Okay, so how would they depict Lalu Yadav in a caricatured form? They'll show him with very mighty big nostrils, big ears and long hair coming out of those ears, him wearing a kurta pajama with a bhais tied in the background and some chara. Yes or no? Now does this caricature of Lalu Yadav, what is the real Lalu Yadav like? Is it more like a photo of Lalu Yadav or this caricature of Lalu Yadav? Clearly, the real Lalu Yadav is more like the photo than the caricature that is developed. Yeah? Why do what is different in the caricature? Certain features are chosen and they are accentuated, they are highlighted, they are kind of deepened. So he does have some hair coming out of his ears, but then they are shown as very elongated just to drive home the point that it is Lalu Yadav. Are you with me? He has a rustic charm, so that is why they would create kind of a rustic, environment in that caricature. Are you with me? But does it capture the complexity of the phenomena, the personality, the career graph of Lalu Yadav? No. Some features are taken and exaggerated. That is how your ideal types are also. You take some aspects of the reality and exaggerate them or highlight them. right? Likewise, if you have a cartoon of Sonia Gandhi, what they'll show? A very elongated nose. Right? She does have a thin nose, but a very, very thin and elongated nose, and a very, very slim figure. She's slim, but then they'll show a very, very slim figure. And then a broad matha and a coiffure or a certain hairstyle, draped in a sari. Are you with me? So just to drive home a certain point, certain features of the reality are taken and then exaggerated. That is how, what is also done in case of ideal types. लिखो. क्या last sentence लिखा है बेटी? Full stop. The researcher selects only certain traits of the social phenomena while constructing the ideal type. Full stop. The researcher thus captures only some essential features and not the whole of reality. WHOLE, of course. And not the whole of, or not the totality of reality. Tell me, friends, bear with me and tell me. Huh? This ideal type is to be found nowhere in the world. There is no one-on-one correspondence between a model or the ideal type and the actual empirical reality out there. Then why the hell do we make them? हम क्या पागल हैं? In other words, as researchers, why don't we depict reality as it is? Instead of developing these abstract models or abstractions. That's what they really are. These are fictional in character, these are pure type. These do not exist anywhere. But why do we create these models or concepts or ideal types? क्या फायदा है या नहीं है? किसी भी चीज का मॉडल क्यों बनाते हैं बताओ सिंपल भाषा में. आइडिया से बनाते हैं पर फायदा क्या है? It can be used by others. To do what? To conduct research, absolutely. Yes. Sorry? So you're saying it's a practical necessity. Yes, so please appreciate what we began with. I'll dictate again, and you'll understand as I dictate. But broadly, social reality is what? It's vast and complex and beyond our comprehension. So ideal types help us to make some sense of this incomprehensible reality. Yes or no? Some semblance of understanding we are able to develop by developing or constructing ideal types. It is humanly impossible to capture all the dimensions of the complex social phenomena. So it does help us, it does improve our understanding of the social phenomena, even if we are able to capture some of its basic elements. ठीक है? दूसरी बात friends, it's a methodological tool. Simply it helps the researcher in his research. I'll dictate everything. It helps the researcher in his research project. Why? It helps us to define social phenomena. For example, we've developed a model of democracy. Now we are closer to developing a definition of democracy. Yes or no? It can very importantly help us to compare the social phenomena in the real world. For example, now we have a model of democracy. Now, based on this model, we can compare democracy in India with democracy in America and democracy in Pakistan. Yes or no? So it serves like a standard that enables comparison in the empirical reality. So it's not some purely theoretical device. Are you with me? It helps us to understand the social reality. So many, in fact, many research bodies, etc., they actually do this. You have a Freedom House project, many Western think tanks, etc. They make a model of democracy and then they rate democracies. Some say India is a partial democracy or a this democracy. Are you with me? That's Europe, France is a full democracy based on the extent of freedom of press, extent of personal individual rights, to what extent they are respected, and so on and so forth. So we can compare democracies and classify them based on certain criteria. ठीक है? लिखो. Purpose of ideal types. Purpose of ideal types. लिखिए. Social reality is, according to Weber, social reality is vast, unorganized, and chaotic. Social reality is vast, unorganized, and chaotic. Full stop. It is essentially, the social reality is essentially incomprehensible. समझ के बाहर है, beyond comprehension है. Full stop. Developing ideal types enable the researcher to make some sense of this vast and chaotic social reality. बेशक ऐसी डेमोक्रेसी कहीं ना मिलती हो, but our understanding of democracy as a concept is better if we've developed a model of it. Yes or no? Our understanding of solar system is better, though not perfect, though not very close to the actual solar system, but it is somewhat better than what we began with. Full stop. Next para. The ideal type is a methodological tool. I repeat, the ideal type is a methodological tool developed by the researcher which facilitates his research. It's a methodological tool developed by the researcher which facilitates his research. Full stop. The ideal type is a mental construct that helps the researcher in systematic characterization. In systematic characterization of the empirical reality. Full stop. Next para. Thus, ideal types help the researcher to analyze and understand the social reality. Full stop. Ideal types enable the researcher to define classify and investigate the social reality, keeping aside, kya? Yes? Keeping aside his own prejudices. Absolutely. Keeping aside his own prejudices. Full stop. Particularly, ideal types help the researcher in classification and comparison of social phenomena in the empirical world. Simply put, friends, ideal types are simply models that we've been developing using since childhood across subjects. Nothing but models or concepts, right? Even in sociology, Weber only gave this express terminology, okay, to ideal types, but they have been used since long. For example, in any sort of classificatory scheme, any concepts that are developed, these are typically ideal types. For example, when Durkheim talks about pre-industrial society with certain features and industrial society with certain other features characterized by mechanical and organic solidarity, these are what? These are ideal types or models or caricatures. Yes or no? When Durkheim talks about the 4 types of suicide, these are what? Ideal types. When Weber talks about the 4 types of social actions, these are what? Ideal types. And what is social reality? It is far more complex, far more complicated, cannot be so neatly classified. But developing these models or classificatory schemes or concepts help us to make some sense of the very complex and almost incomprehensible social world. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद for bearing with me.